Are you serious, guys? Are you seriously serious? The Putin Chronicles, the Zelenskyy Pandora papers. Let me share with you some very critical information on the eve of the conversation going to take place between President Donald Trump on the phone and Vladimir Putin, and the war that's the nuclear potential that's right now. Can we have peace, or will there be global thermonuclear war? Gold has surged 46% in the last year, doubling the gains of the NASDAQ and the S&P 500, going over $3,000 an ounce. But this isn't just another rally, folks. It's a global reserves are shifting, exposing the cracks in the monetary system. Investors are losing confidence in paper gold, and they're demanding the physical metal itself, creating a massive gap between gold that's owned and gold that's available. What? Are you serious? But this isn't about how institutions broke another system. This is about how you could profit off the situation. Right now, Noble Gold Investment has limited supply, but they got gold bars and gold coins, and they can make them available to ship to you today. As banks scramble to fulfill their obligations, pushing gold prices higher, you could profit from it. Smart investors are already moving into physical gold. Noble Gold Investments makes it easy for you to do the same. And right now, when you make a qualified investment, Noble Gold will add a free 1/10 of an ounce gold coin to give to you for free with your order. Don't wait until it's too late. Visit www.pastorpaulgold.com. That's www.pastorpaulgold.com, or call him on the phone at 877-646-5347. You'll be glad that you did, okay? I guarantee it. Well, all right. Now, here's what's going on. Tomorrow, President Donald Trump is going to call Vladimir Putin and have a very, very critical conversation on the war in Ukraine and Russia. I mean, this is huge, guys. This is huge. And the only thing that's maybe bigger than that is the webinar we're going to have on Friday, Alien Encounters. And we just added another person to this, and that's Agent X will be coming on. And he'll be giving a update on information he has, because he has been to the subterranean underground bases where there is biologics, where there is the biologics that you've heard about. And I'll let him explain it, what he saw. So, I mean, this is incredible. You're going to have Agent X, Mike from around the world, Laura Eisenhower, Rex Bear, L.A. Marzulli. I'm going to talk and teach from my the 10th chapter of my book, Revelation 9:11. Heidi's going to bring forth the Green Report. Bart Begley is doing a full documentary on the aliens. And we have interviewed 15 people from this audience, firsthand accounts of UFO, UAP, alien, demonic entity, or angelic encounters. This is incredible. What an incredible. So get your tickets tonight. Get your tickets tonight. Go get your tickets right now is what I'm trying to say, and be ready for Friday night at 6 p.m. when we send those links. I don't want you sitting around in the brinks. I want you to be ready and to watch the most incredible presentation and the Green File. The Green Report that Heidi's bringing, oh, my Lord. But now I'm blown away by Agent X. Let me share some more with you right now. Let's talk about this phone call tomorrow. Trump's going to be calling Putin. But before I do, what do we expect with this? Well, first of all, who are these guys? Okay? Who is Vladimir Putin, the ex-KGB? And who is Vladimir Zelenskyy? Let's start with Zelenskyy. Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelenskyy is a Ukrainian actor, a comedian who became a politician. He played the role of a president of Ukraine for years on a very popular national sitcom before deciding why not just launch a successful bid to become the country's actual president. Zelenskyy created a political party and named it after his television show, Servant of the People, it's called. He assumed office in May of 2019 with the money back behind him of George Soros, promising to root out the country's endemic corruption, a mission critics say has been marred by his links to some of Ukraine's wealthiest and most powerful oligarchs. On July the 12th, 2019, Zelenskyy and then President Donald Trump had a phone call about the U.S. military situation and aid that he wanted. This is before the war ever broke out with Russia, and a conversation about the Joe Biden's participation in coming over to Ukraine and threatening to withhold $1 billion from the Ukrainians unless they fire a prosecutor who was looking into Burisma and some of the doings that Biden and his son Hunter were involved in. But because Trump asked the question about that, it led to Trump's first impeachment by the U.S. House of Representatives. These leaked documents in what's called the Pandora Papers is a trove of information reveals that Zelenskyy owned shares in anonymous offshore entities, as did some of his business partners who are now close political allies. Documents show that Zelenskyy owned a stake in a shell company registered in the British Virgin Islands called Maltix Multi-Capital Corporation, which is described in leaked records as holding shares in a film production distribution company. So he was getting money flowing in and was putting it in an offshore account in a shell company called Maltix Multi-Capital Corporation, along with some of his business partners who ultimately become his advisors when he became president. In March of 2019, just a month before he was elected president, Zelenskyy quietly transferred his so-called beneficial owner shares of the company to Sergei Sheffer, a close friend and business partner who then became one of his closest presidential aides in Kiev. They had worked together in a film production business before Zelenskyy became Ukraine's president. A document from June 25th, 2019 shows that Shafir retained his stake in the Maltix company after he joined Zelenskyy's administration. Shafir and Zelenskyy did not respond to any of the requests for comments by the investigators of this secret corporation. It's known as the Pandora Papers of Vladimir Zelenskyy. Now, let's talk a little bit about who Vladimir Putin is, the ex-KGB agent. And as expected, Vladimir Putin won this year's controversial presidential election when he ran in 2024. And what Russians expect over the next 6 years is very, very interesting. Vladimir Putin's words were, "We will think about the future of our great homeland, about the future of our children, and if we act accordingly, we are certainly doomed to success." When Putin gave his speech after being elected president on March 18, 2018, he was celebrated since then. Russia has witnessed very divergent fortunes. In the same year, many Russian metropolises successfully hosted the Football World Cup. In 2020, Putin dismissed his most loyal protege, Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev. He then made extensive changes to his constitution, which then made it possible for him to become president in 2024, in which he did. Partly because he imprisoned his arch rival, Navalny, who has since died in prison. Now, in parallel, Russia's new dark side became increasingly apparent. In the same 6 years, the Russian state began to diligently brand independent journalists and public figures with the foreign agent label. Today, there are more than 300 people on this list who, according to a new law, are no longer even allowed to work as journalists with advertisers. Putin's most important political opponent, Alexei Navalny, was poisoned with a nerve agent by a Russian Secret Service agent in August of 2020. After being treated in Germany, he returned in January of 21. He was then imprisoned by Putin on fictitious criminal charges. But that was not the most important and bloodiest event of Putin's past term. In February 24, 2022, he made history when the Kremlin leader launched a full-scale military invasion of his neighboring nation of Ukraine. Hundreds of thousands of people have died since the war began, and there seems to be no end unless President Donald Trump is able to work some kind of miraculous negotiations that can bring the end to this war. Putin's current reelection was a kind of referendum on this course of the war. It was intended to legitimize the invasion of Ukraine to show that Russian population supports his undertaking. The authorities did everything they could to avoid surprises. And a month before the election, guess who died? Navalny, who had actively urged Russians to go to the polls and vote against Putin. He died suddenly in a remote prison in Siberia. He froze to death, or he died of a heart attack. We're not sure which. All of the independent candidates who criticized the war, the head of the state, were not allowed to even run for election. So Putin basically has been able to take full control and become a quasi-dictator of his country, of Russia. But so has Zelenskyy. Zelenskyy has canceled the elections that should have taken place in 2024 and remains the dictator president of Ukraine. He's saying that he has to remain there until the war is over. So we have the the Putin Chronicles and the Zelenskyy Pandora papers. But what should we expect to happen in this negotiation? What is going to happen in the conversation between President Trump and Vladimir Putin on tomorrow? Well, what do we expect? Well, the Putin playbook author discussed that President Donald Trump's efforts to the Russian war in Ukraine will be very difficult. President Donald Trump announced Sunday that he will likely be speaking with President Vladimir Putin on tomorrow. Putin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov and the White House have since confirmed this call will take place. Trump is eager to fulfill a campaign promise by making a deal with Vladimir Putin to end the war in Ukraine, which he has called a bloodbath. Here's what to expect, though. Both Trump and Putin will likely remain very cordial and respectful to each other, continuing to showcase their skills and talents in diplomacy. Unlike former President Biden and his VP Kamala Harris, who frequently got exasperated by Putin's recalculants, calling him a killer, Trump does not insult Putin, and the master of the art of the deal knows how to dance the waltz of diplomacy. Underneath the facade, though, neither Trump nor Putin trust each other. Smiles and positive gestures notwithstanding, in their first term, Trump pursued the most forceful anti-Russian policy since Ronald Reagan against Vladimir Putin. He authorized lethal aid to Ukraine. He sanctioned the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. He booted out Russian spies who operated out of its embassy posing as diplomats, and he shut down 3 Russian facilities in the United States that effectively served as espionage operating bases targeting the homeland. Trump also took several measures to mitigate Russia's ability to exploit vulnerabilities in America's way of war, which is highly reliant on technology. In turn, Putin views Trump as an extremely difficult, worthy opponent, someone who is unpredictable and hard to manipulate, the way the Russian dictator plays previous presidents like Bush, Obama, and Biden. In 2017, when he was asked by a journalist if he was disappointed in Trump after the closure of the Russian diplomatic facilities in New York, Washington, and San Francisco, Putin called the question naive. The former KGB operative said, "Trump is not my bride, and he's not my groom." In 2018, after the summit in Helsinki, Finland, Putin mocked the ideal that Trump trusted him. "You can't trust anyone. Where did you get that ideal that Trump trusts me and I fully trust him?" Putin told journalists. "Trump defends the interests of America, and I defend the interests of Russia." Indeed, feelings and emotions are simply not part of the statecraft that serious, strong heads of state use when dealing with each other, especially when it comes to Russia and the United States, both of which consider themselves exceptionally great powers. But when it comes to the substantiative side of the Trump-Putin deal on Ukraine, there will be no breakthroughs tomorrow, I don't think, but both sides will likely report positive progress, but no specific details. Now, the 30-day ceasefire deal is unachievable tomorrow. Putin is highly unlikely to be compelled to accept a ceasefire because he's prepared to fight until the bitter end. Mike from the World has said Putin will never leave Ukraine, but will continue to move forward. Even if the war takes a pause, he will never leave until he completely takes the entire country. And as President Trump recently admitted, Putin holds all the cards. Washington could and likely will apply even more severe economic pressure on Moscow, as U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett recently suggested. Hassett claimed that there's a heck of a lot of things that Trump is ready to use as part of his carrots or sticks strategy to pressure Putin. But the Russians believe Team Trump are bluffing, suggesting that there's too risky to play the cards involving global economic ramifications. The Russians think more aggressive sanctions against Russia's energy sector would backfire, resulting in even higher prices here in America. Regardless, though, Moscow believes it can weather any sanction, as it has done thus far. Indeed, no economic sanctions have changed Putin's behavior in the past decade. Now, President Trump likely senses that a deal with Putin is harder to make than he thought. By making it his campaign promise, though, Trump might have boxed himself into an unachievable time frame, giving Putin leverage. Trump's Russian advisors should have laid out clearly for the commander-in-chief the complexity of the Russian-Ukraine issue that Washington had stepped into by pushing Ukraine into NATO in the first place. The Russians' media is praising Putin's 6 words message to an impatient Trump. Okay? It refers to Putin's recent televised statement in which he claimed that Russia is for peace, but there are nuances. On Sunday, Trump claimed that he was being a little bit sarcastic when he promised on the campaign trail to end the Russian-Ukraine war in 24 hours. But on Sunday night, speaking with journalists on Air Force One, President Trump sounded more realistic and clear-eyed. "We want to see if we can bring that war to an end," he said. "Maybe we can. Maybe we can't. But I think we have a very good chance. If the commander-in-chief realizes that Putin is stringing him along, he will cancel the call and walk away. Letting Putin stew might soften him up, prompting a comeback if the Russians really want peace. The mess that President Trump inherited from Biden and the European Union will almost certainly not be resolved in one phone call at all tomorrow." So, in other words, you're dealing with some very savvy individuals here, especially Putin and Trump. Both of them don't want to be showed up. Neither one of them wants to look weak. But both of them both agree that the war continuing on is in nobody's best interest. Putin has got about as far as he can go with Ukraine, as far as taking the 22% of the property of land and securing his position in Crimea. Zelensky's went about as far as he can go, realizing that the cash flow, the gravy train from America, has dried up. So we're dealing now, guys, with the reality. There's a lot of dead people on both sides. There's a lot of children that were transferred from Ukraine into Russia. There's a lot on the line. And Zelensky's gravy train is running out. And Putin knows that time is on his side, not Zelensky's side. And Trump knows that the longer this goes on, the more difficult the global geopolitical landscape looks. Trump's got some things up his sleeve that he could use, but ultimately, Zelensky's going to be the biggest loser in this whole thing. Let's watch and see how this all plays out. But I'm telling you right now, this isn't for actors. This isn't for comedians. This is for shrewd individuals who know how to negotiate on a global scale. Give your life to Jesus Christ and pray that we don't fall in to World War III. We're living in very dangerous times, guys. We are living in World War III moment.
God, I'm so scared for this crooked generation. You even find faith in the earth when you bring down revelation. Forgive us now.
We're living in the end times.
The sins of our youth, worshiping the idols that knew everything but the truth. Teach us how to uncorrupt our minds. Show us now while we still have the time.
And then there's Syria and the Middle East.
We need you,
Yeshua.
Holy, holy, hallelujah. We need you,
Yeshua.
holy, holy, hallelujah. We abandon everything.
Are you serious?
Follow you, our King. We throw our gold and silver in the streets.
How much will we see before the fire falls? Lord, could this really be the last altar call? We need your blood over the doorpost of our hearts. Anoint us with your fiery love as the praise and worship starts. We need you, Yeshua. Holy, holy, hallelujah.
We need you,
We need you, Lord.
Yeshua.
Holy, holy, hallelujah.
We abandon everything to follow you, our King. We throw our gold and silver in the streets. Oh, we abandon everything to follow you, our King. are gold and silver in the street.
And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the Mount Zion, and with him was 144,000, having their father's name written in their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of a great thunder. And I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps. And they sung as it were a new song before the throne, and before the four beasts and the elders. And no man could learn that song but the 144,000, which are the redeemed from the earth. These are they which are not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb wheresoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the firstfruits of God and to the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no guile, for they are without fault before the throne of God. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear God, and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of waters. And there followed another angel, saying, Babylon is fallen, the great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And a third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his right or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascended up forever and forever. They had no rest day and night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. And here is patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. And I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, Right, blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth. Yea, saith the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, and their works do follow them. And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud sat one like the Son of Man, having his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. And the angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, Thrust in thy sickle, and reap, for the time is come for thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. And he that sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped. Give your life to Jesus Christ. The reaping is coming. Are you saved?